Welcome to the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. I am your host, Sarah Smith. I am a practicing rural family physician and the charting coach. This is the podcast for physicians and advanced practice providers who are ready to step back from the busyness of their clinical day to share ideas, question everything, and redesign their clinical day. We are redesigning clinical medicine to create sustainable clinical days and create time for our lives outside of medicine. Join us for discussions with world experts who are helping design sustainable models of clinical medicine and the physicians or clinicians who have discovered or designed sustainable models of clinical medicine for themselves. Hello, everybody. So today I am going to be introducing you to Dr. Bonnie Koo. And Bonnie is a physician coach who works with women physicians, particularly on the area of money and finances and wealth, all things related to looking after ourselves from a financial perspective. So Bonnie, go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
I'm so excited to be here. Number one, thank you for having me. So I'm Bonnie. I'm a dermatologist, although I stopped practicing in early 2020, sort of right before the pandemic hit. And I'm like, let me say the short version. I was not planning on becoming a money coach. That was never my intention. But similar to your story about seeing the need for help with charting, I saw, or more like noticed, because I didn't know this until I started practicing, that people really had a gap in their knowledge of money. Because no one gets this education. It's not in any of the school curriculum. It's definitely not in medical school. And so it's like, of course you don't know it. And it's a learnable skill. So then I think all of that, it adds up because also physicians are kind of, we have that martyr mentality. Well, I'm not doing it for the money. And so they don't even, anyway, I could talk about this ad nauseum, but that's what I do. And it's really important to me because I want physicians to be not just happy, but have choices. I never want them to feel like they can't do something, whether it's how they practice medicine or really have the life that they want because of money. That's really what it comes down to. That's what I do.
Perfect. All right. So what are some of the common examples of the things that we may not know that we don't know about money? Because we all make money, but I know some of us don't even check out the pay slips or have a lot to do with the taxation part. We really feel lost and confused at the tax season, that sort of thing. What don't we know?
Oh, that's such a good question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. I don't think they know anything. Frankly. Well, it depends, right? Depends on what they've learned previously. I think a few things that I see is there's this common misconception that money is complicated. And so they don't even look into it. And so I like to remind physicians and any well-educated person is that it's something you can learn and it's much easier than medicine. And of course you don't know it. Because I think there's this a bit of embarrassment and shame that they don't know anything about money, but it's like, how could you?
Yeah. All right.
So
very good. Okay,
and how important it is to learn it because, and obviously we're talking specifically about physicians, because it does give you choice and agency in how you want to practice medicine or even leaving medicine or lifestyle. And also giving ourselves permission to want that lifestyle and go for it, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people feel like if they're getting a salary, that's it. That's the money coming in and there's no way to mess with that.
Well, yeah, clearly that is not helpful, right? With having more money. So are you asking me what are the options or is that really true?
Yeah, is that really true?
Yeah. Okay. So there's multiple ways to attack this quote unquote problem. So yes, when you're W-2 salaried, but things can be negotiated. And what I mean by that is the easiest way to make more money, we're talking about just your active clinical income, is to get a raise, but also there's also getting a raise that's not necessarily a monetary thing. getting more vacation time, the sort of like intangibles, right? So that's something you can do something about. Whether they say yes or no is a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't think you can do it, you're not going to ask, right? So that's number one. Also, I think most of us, the way we're brought up about money is that you get a job and the job is your only source of income.
Mm-hmm.
So just explaining that doesn't have to, well, it's just not true. If that's all you think you can do, then you don't know anything else. So, but most people have heard about the concept of multiple streams of income.
Mm-hmm.
But then usually they say, oh, well, I don't want a side gig or XYZ. Everyone kind of knows the concept of investing. In the US, we have, retirement accounts. I know there's something similar in Canada where you can contribute, and then in the US, it comes off your taxes and it grows. The problem with that is it is a source of income, but it's not going to be a source of income until you retire, air quotes. And traditionally, retirement is you after 30 or 40 years. Like if you think of the traditional, like zooming back, this is not zooming out, rather, it's not even a doctor thing. It's go to school, study hard, go to college, maybe graduate school. Obviously, for doctors, we went to medical school, and get a good job that pays well. Do that for 30 or 40 years, and then you retire with money. And when you think of the way things used to be, working for a big company, they used to take care of you. Pensions, right? Those are pretty much have gone away. In medicine, the only sort of organization that doesn't now is Kaiser. So I think it's first looking at that and like, is that really true? Is this the only way to do that? And why have we accepted that that's the way it is? Because we don't even question it. Well, this is just the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that actually Peter Kim, obviously investing is, putting money in somewhere so that it grows. But I love the way he explained it. Investing is taking today's money or today's cash flow for tomorrow's cash flow and growing it. I guess you could say there are options to grow it more rapidly than the stock market, that you can actually create an additional stream of income. So it does require to do something different. And we both know change is hard. And also, there's also the thought like, well, this is going to take more work. I'm already so busy. I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
But we have to zoom out and realize, but if nothing changes, I'm just going to have to work all the time for money and make sure I put enough away for retirement. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, great. The one thing I'll say about that is, but your goals can change. You might change your mind later down the road. And so I'm just about like, let's make sure you have choices. Why would you, my whole thing is, why would you not want more money when it's possible, right? And physicians are in such a great position because we do make, a higher salary. So there's more options for investing. And so also I like what I teach is I want people to think of their money as a table, and a table needs legs to support it. And if we only have that one leg of active clinical income, and yes, there's a retirement account, but it's not paying you right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's very precarious, right? If you lose your job, and traditionally our jobs, it's still secure, but it's not as secure as it used to be, especially if you're salaried. You don't really have much control if you're an employee in general. I think the pandemic made that more obvious, that you can be furloughed as a doctor, that you can actually lose your job. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a bit more awareness that maybe they should do something about it instead of just relying on a job. And so it just makes sense, right? The more legs of income you have, the more stable it is. So that if you do lose your job or, income gets cut, in the US, I'm sure you know this, every year, the people, I don't even know who they are, they decide how much you get reimbursed per visit, per procedure. It's ludicrous that they literally decrease it every year. I don't know what they think we should do. Like, how is that okay, right? That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
And so then that increases the burden on the physician, and they have to see more patients to make the same amount of money, which is unsustainable over time. And if you have extra income coming in, you have choices. You can say F this and leave that job, or you can say, okay, I'm just going to see less patients because I don't want to be working 60 hours a week just to make the same amount of income. Mm-hmm. And you need to do something different if that's what you want. And it's possible.
Beautiful. Okay. It's possible to have different if you want it without necessarily having to upload everything, upturn everything, and get a new job. We're saying, right where you are with what you're doing, are we optimizing what you're doing? As you know, we talk about contributing to your own under-earning. If you're leaving those charts till later and you're doing work in the evening, you're basically giving yourself a second job that's unpaid.
Absolutely.
And doing the thing you least enjoy. Just pointing that out to you if you haven't noticed that you're giving yourself, when you say, I'll do that later, you're giving yourself a second job that's taking you 2 to 4 hours a night and every weekend. So you're actually working a second job and not getting paid, for most of you, contributing to under-earning.
Totally. Yeah. And that, the way I like to think about, and you and I have had discussions about using our brain space optimally, right? Because we can only hold so much information. And when we're working so much, charting at night, and especially if you're a mom, then you're like momming and managing the household, right? Because, that disproportionately falls on us. You just don't have literally time, and you don't have brain space to be creative. And a little bit of creativity is required to create additional sources of money. But you can't even think about it if you're so busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yes. So how then else can we create time? Because we mentioned busyness and that we're using up our days, like all the hours of the days right now are being used up, right? All of us are using up every hour of the day with whatever we're doing right now. If we wanted to create more time in our lives, what are we doing? So what are you noticing that people are able to do about that?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is you can always make more money, but you can't have more time.
Mm-hmm.
When I say have more time, like you can't get more than 24 hours a day, right?
Yes. Yes.
So that's our most precious resource.
Yes.
And we all have the same amount of time a day. So I think just like zooming out, like, and noticing clearly people are able to do things and they have the same 24 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is something that I've been working on, and because I have a personal story about my business and my new assistant, is being willing to outsource things. And the number one barrier I see among type A people, aka physicians, we're all type A, is, well, I can do it better. I can do it in less time. And no one else can do it as well as I can, which is kind of like the first thing I said. So this applies to cleaning. Mm-hmm. This applies to really anything that they know technically they could hire it out, but they can do it better and it's faster. But the problem is, that means you're doing it.
Yes.
And so it is a skill to kind of let go of that control, being okay with the job maybe not being as good, but also you can train people to do that, which also takes time. So I think a lot of it's like, well, it's going to take time to train them and it's just faster if I do it again, but then you have to do it. And if you're putting in the time up front to tell people how you want things done, then you don't have to do it.
Yes.
Right? So
yes, that's we talk about this too. So this is an investment in your future self. So if we can start to train people, that is costly, right? It costs time. It's annoying to have to spend time teaching someone how to do something. But as they build that skill and take it off your plate, you're not doing it anymore.
Yes. And also some of these tasks take up precious brain space, because even though we could do it better, it might use, and I have an example, it might use a part of your brain that's really taxing. So obviously as a business owner, and I think you have help assistants, right?
Yeah.
So I've gone through a few, and well, number one is no one knows, kind of like people don't know the skill of money. People also don't have the skill of hiring and managing people. That is a skill you can learn. And so I would kind of micromanage my team because I was meddling and, because I was worried about things getting missed, etc. But then I was still doing work that I didn't have to do. Now, the assistant I just hired a few months ago, and then you probably know I'm hosting a conference in March of 2024. I realized that the conference was a crap ton of work. I really had no idea what I was getting myself. Of course, I knew it was work, I've done a retreat before, so I know that the work it took. When you have more people and speakers, it is a. Anyway, so it was taking so much of my brain space. I was getting so stressed out. And at some point, I was like, if I don't do something about this, I'm going to go insane. Like literally. And it's going to be very taxing on me personally, etc. In many other aspects, because I was not being able to work on other parts of my business. So I basically begged my old assistant, who is a professional event planner, to step in. And also, okay, let me put the money part aside, because obviously you pay these people. And actually only a week or two ago, at the time of this recording, Sarah, I basically handed this off to them completely. And that was hard, but I think I got to a point where it's like, if I don't do this, whatever, it was going to have a big cost to me. And I had to be okay with that discomfort of letting go some of that control. And I remember my assistant, the event planner, so I have two people working on this, basically was like, we got you. This is what I do. I'm very good at this. She's like, I know you know this, but maybe it'll calm your brain to know, like, this is literally what I do. I know everything that has to happen. And also we decided that instead of them asking me like little questions here or there, that they would come up with the solution or answer, and then they would bring the proposals. They would bring the solutions to me. And so I would just say yes or no. So that's what we literally just decided a week or two ago.
Love it.
And it's actually freed up so much time, Sarah. I'm like, what do I need to do? Like, I'm like sitting here like with so little work. So that's the conference. And then there's my assistant who is just, doing multiple things for me. But similar to what you say about charting, I'm like, oh, it'll take 2 seconds. For example, if I have a private coaching client and we schedule some appointments, I have to put it in Acuity, like my calendar system, to just have it official, right? I would just do that. I'm like, oh, it'll take 2 seconds. But then I have to do it. Or anything really that I do. And just in the past few weeks, I've just decided to stop doing all those things and letting her do it. Yeah. And again, I'm just like, I have so much free time. What? I was like, what? Part of me is like, what's going on here?
I'll give you an example from the clinical day, that a similar kind of thing. So you may not be in charge of hire and fire of staff where you are. So you may not be that person or that owner of that business, but there'll be people, staff around you that do things. And you're right, Bonnie, the way we onboard them to do this work, we see a lot of physicians continuing to do work, which is taking time that their MA could be taught, or their nurse could be taught, or somebody within their sphere of influence. When we have the staff, I know some of you don't have the staff right now, that's okay. But when we do, how do we use them effectively rather than continuing to do this work? So a form, let's talk about a form. So a form, I might get $30, right? I might get more than that. Some of the forms are $30. So when I think about it from a money point of view, if I wanted to, I say, how many minutes do I get to complete this form for my $30? Okay, that's just one of the ways to think about forms. It's one of the ways it got over the whole, it's sucking my life away when I got a form. And then what are the other things that I do to finish a form? Like, what documents do I need to find to add to this form so it can be sent off and be complete? Finding those pieces of documentation is not physician work or clinician work. It's just not. That is administration. Now I am being a expensive secretary.
Yes.
And when I think about that, I'm like, what if they don't find the MRI or the CT or that is the onboarding process. So you could do it a couple of different ways. You could say, okay, if I give you this form, what documents will you include? Or I'll give you this form. You think about which documents you think need to be with this form and show me before you send it. It's kind of that quality contact. So you're like, show me, and then I'll be able to help decide if I taught you well enough or if I need to kind of go in there and do some more teaching.
Yeah, no, onboarding is really, really important, and to be really specific and giving direct feedback. And what I see, since I work with women, is they feel bad giving them feedback because they don't want them to be upset. but you hired them for a specific, it's like remembering that you hired them to do this. You didn't hire them to be their friend. And they appreciate getting feedback. And if they don't, then you have the wrong person, because I'm just guessing hopefully they want to do a good job. Right. And so you have to be willing to onboard and train. And so one thing I tell, because obviously most of my clients aren't business owners, but they still have things that they don't need to do. Right. And so what I tell them to do, and first they're like, oh, I want someone, but what are they going to do? Is every time they notice they're doing something that they don't really need to do, just take out, everyone has a smartphone, open your little notes app and write it down. I don't really need to do this. So then you have a list, because when you hire someone, they have to know what to do. They can't read your mind, unfortunately, right? It would be great if they could, but they don't. So then you have a list of tasks like, oh, I really want them to do this. Okay, I have to teach them how to do this. So this can apply to, I'm thinking like, this is what I do in business, but you can definitely apply to personal, is the next time I do this, I'm going to either document how I do it, or I'm going to record myself doing it, like a screencast. So it's something on a computer. I'm just going to record it, and then they can watch it and learn. And this is really important for two reasons. One is so they know how you want it done, right? And you don't have to necessarily spend time training them. And the thing is, you're probably not going to have the same person helping you forever. And so you can reduce that time of onboarding by having like these processes, right? In business, we call them SOP, standard operating procedures. And then they could actually help you create them. So I don't think about this in personal thing, but why not? Why wouldn't it be? If you're someone that travels a lot, you could just have them do it, or have them do the initial research. That's actually what I love about having an assistant is, let me give you an example. My son is starting kindergarten this fall, and we are sending him to a private school, and it's about 30 minutes away. Not ideal. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, maybe I could co-work twice a week so that I don't have to keep going back and forth. Now, it's not a good use of my time for me to Google what those are. I enjoy doing that. This is the problem, right? You might enjoy doing something.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean it's
way
a
more
good
fun
use of
than
your
the other
time.
things you have to do sometimes, right?
Yeah, no, exactly, right? It's like there are things that I enjoy, but it's really not a good use of my time. So I had her research it and then, present the information. And I also asked her, give me 3 that you recommend. I didn't want a list of 20. And I gave her some parameters about what I'm looking for. And then she did all that research, presented it to me, and it was very easy for me to choose.
Nice.
That's an example of something an assistant can do. And this could be, all sorts of things, right? Hiring a travel planner when you're planning, a vacation, versus some people enjoy Googling itineraries. I do enjoy making itineraries. So that is something I'm not willing to outsource, but that's fine. It's like, but I'm choosing to do that because it's something I enjoy. And part of me is like, I don't know how someone else could do this. I'm sure they could, but
yeah.
So those are just some examples. And then the question is, well, I don't want to pay someone to do this. So this is where you really have to, like, what is the cost? And it's not necessarily money, but it kind of is, right? Because if you think of our value, like, let's just use our physician income. So let's say it's $150 an hour, $150. If you could pay someone to do it with less money, then you're actually making money. Maybe it's not money, but you're getting a very big benefit. And in the context of my business, when I have someone doing sort of that administrative work, it frees up my brain so I can actually be in better service for my clients. Because my job as a coach is to coach and to really think hard about how I can be better at it, better explain things. I'm the person who has all the ideas. There's certain things only I can do. And the more time I have that free brain space, just the better I'm going to be in general. And also that's what makes me happy ultimately. I don't really enjoy the admin stuff. So
yeah,
I know I said a lot, but
no, I think that's good. So if we're thinking about the physicians or clinicians in their day and they're trying to create that sustainableness of medicine, we say they've got a lot of them are women, but not all. But I know that you focus specifically on women. So they're getting up, getting the kids ready, heading off to drop the kids off, work, come home. Now it's time to dinner prep and put the kids to bed. And they're like, I don't have any me time. Like I am fully booked and there's no time for me. I have my own goals and wishes. I would like to be exercising, for an example.
Yeah.
And that ability to say, but my income is fixed, or I don't want to work any harder because I'm already working hard enough. So tell us some of the things about, for instance, billing and outsourcing about our lives.
So when you say billing, do you mean like billing correctly?
Yeah.
Yeah, because so many, it's been shown that women underbill significantly. And you can think, you know, since lawyers bill for time, it's just been seen like they do bill by time. That's how they make money for the most part. Sometimes they're flat fee. But women often say, oh, that only took a minute. I'm not going to bill for it. So the way I like to present this is, what would Chad do? And Chad is a man. Chad would definitely bill for that. No question. It wouldn't even be a thing. But women have this guilt like, oh, it only took a minute, right? So, and then when it comes to physicians, most of us don't really know how to bill properly. And even if we do, it's easy to be like, well, it just took 5 minutes, so I'm just going to bill this level, even though technically I could bill this because we feel bad. So there's that. So that, if you think about that, just if you learn how to bill correctly, you will increase your income. Like, right? So it's part of it's like, why am I not billing? Usually it's kind of guilt, feeling bad. Don't want to put that burden, although, it's insurance, but now in the US, everyone has a high deductible, so we don't want people to be upset. So there's that. And then in terms of outsourcing, remember what I said earlier about investing? It does take some time and effort, right? It's not, there are quote unquote passive things, but if you want to build legs, those money table legs faster, or actually create a greater return, you need the time and space to do that. And so one thing I'll say, because the argument here is like, well, but then I have to spend the money and I don't want to spend the money because then I'll have less money, right? That's what people say.
Yes.
And so the question I love to ask is, but how is outsourcing it? I'm going to give some common examples that I tell people. How is outsourcing that actually going to create more money for you? Because they just look at the money they're spending and they don't quite see that everything you spend money on you get a return. It's not always money, but you get some kind of return. So they're just looking at, well, I don't want to spend whatever it costs for someone to do X, Y, Z. So some common things that I think are easy, like everyone kind of knows, like most people do have someone who cleans and maybe even organize, right?
Or not. Like some people even won't go there because it feels like it's a task I can do. Why would I hire someone? I'm just going to have to tidy up before they arrive anyway. So I may as well just continue on and clean.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of objections to even getting the cleaner.
Yeah. And it's, probably the most common thing that people do outsource. So it's people know that people do that. But yeah, there's a lot of barrier because I definitely know people who are like, well, I can clean better.
Yeah, I can clean better then.
Yeah. But then you have to do it, right?
But
and also you can tell them how you want things done.
Yes.
So that's one
feedback, and you can fire them.
Yes.
If they're not your person.
Yeah. And then one of the things I hear a lot, and this is, for moms, is they come home and then they have to make dinner, or they don't even time to make their food. And so they're usually, then that means they're eating bad, quote unquote, unhealthy food when you don't have time. And so when I suggest that they should hire a chef, people are usually shocked because in their mind, like, that's expensive. It costs more than going to the grocery store and preparing the meals. And I guess, these days you can order delivery for groceries. So I think a lot of people do that now. But it frees up so much time and angst. Because if you have kids, like, they can literally make the meals for the kids. If that's something you do, if they don't, get food at school. And they can make you food. And it's so much less time, less mentally taxing, eating better food. It also doesn't cost as much as people think. It costs money, but it's not as much money as people think it's going to cost.
Yeah.
Because also a lot of them will clean up after they cook. So there's like, you know what I mean? So it's taking, and
Win-win.
A lot of them will.
Yeah.
It's all different, but a lot of them will actually shop for you, cook, put it away, whatever, and then clean up. And then if someone, because that, cooking takes time. Like I enjoy cooking,
Hmm.
but there are times when I have outsourced it when I was, had a very young baby. But if someone can take care of that for you, because that's time and also just mental brain power, then maybe you'll have time to learn how to invest in real estate and do it, which is
Yeah.
going to make you more money.
Hmm.
So that's an example of a common thing that people really don't enjoy doing, but they feel like they have to do.
Yeah. Well, we need to eat, right? So,
Yeah. We want to eat healthy food. We want our kids to
but
eat
we
healthy
want to
food.
eat healthy food because it helps our brain so that we can do this in a more sustainable way for ourselves. All right. I want my physicians and clinicians who are working on sustainable clinical medicine getting the rest that they need. And so when you are working hard and you come home and your brain is like tired because you have given a good day, and you want to have that quality time with the kids, and you want to have that ability to go and join a friend to have a cup of coffee, then there's that, who am I if I decide where I prioritize my money being spent? Is that helpful to me if I outsource that? What is the value I'm going to get for me from that? Right? Because they're like,
Yes.
oh, I'm just being lazy when I hire somebody to clean my house.
Oh, yeah. That's a big, and this is something I see a lot in women because we're definitely not thinking about this consciously, but if we're not quote unquote productive, then our brain goes to, I'm lazy and being lazy is bad. Therefore, even just watch, this is something I've noticed in myself, Sarah. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to spend an hour watching Netflix. Right now I'm watching Jack Ryan. I feel bad for doing that sometimes. Like, oh, I should be doing something more productive.
Mm,
Right? That's
yeah.
that's like the thought that I think is really common. And if I'm not spending time cooking, and also there's like the whole mom guilt, well, I should be cooking dinner for them. That's my job. So there's all these underlying beliefs that prevent us from outsourcing. Now, I'm not saying you have to hire a chef. There are also ways to make it sustainable and more efficient,
Mm,
right? So, I'm not an expert at this, but spending time planning, some people will just spend a few hours on Sunday cooking,
mhm.
but if you're, married or have a partner, they could help too. But I think that barrier exists for women. Well, I don't want to ask them to do it. And then when they don't do it, then we get mad.
Or they're going to take longer to do it, or I have to clean up after they finish doing it, or other types of questions. But if you don't let people or your kids
Oh,
learn how to
yeah.
cook and be messy and take longer, then they're never going to learn the skill. It's like that onboarding for staff. There's an onboarding process for somebody else doing what you've done. And so you become very efficient at it. We have to let it be messy, messy middle.
And then, yeah, it's so funny that you say about teaching kids because I've noticed, like, oh, because when you're really young, obviously you do have to do things for them, right? They can't
Mm-hmm.
do things. But Jack's, he's turning 6 this fall. And it just occurred to me the other day, Sarah, he's old enough to make his bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to teach him that.
Yes.
But it's easier for me to just do it. He
It
doesn't
is
like cleaning up his
easier for
toys.
you to just do it. And that is the sentence that is costing you time and money right now,
Yes.
right? All of us in our workday, all of us in our home life, costing us time or money by, it's just easier if I do it myself.
Yeah. Or like, it's just a habit of me picking out his clothes and helping. He can dress himself.
One of my colleagues laughs at me in my parenting style. Myself and my husband, we have two sons. And we, from an early age, they had to do dinner once a week. From about, between 8 and 10, they started doing one meal a week for the evening meal. And they had to strip and wash and make their own bed from the earliest that they could. And I think that was starting around 6. Like, they can take the pillow slip off to start with, for instance. He's like, child slavery at your place. I'm like, and adult skill building.
Yes. Because we all know adults who don't do it or literally don't know how to cook.
Yeah. And so it's that purposeful, messy middle where you let them do it so that they're learning the skill. And now we do have a kid still at home. He's doing his apprenticeship, so he's still living at home. His laundry and his bed and his bathroom and his space is all his to do.
And then you don't have to do it.
None of it is my job. None of it.
Yeah, I need to do a better job about that. He's old enough
Yeah.
to. He will bring his plates to the, you know, to the sink.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
There's
there's
that
things I need to
process
work
of
on.
continuing to give responsibility away and letting it be messy while they figure it out and being there to help and to give feedback. Like these are the skills that we learn in all our environments. One other thing I wanted to ask that I thought of was the hats that we say yes to. The
The
things
what?
that we say, the hats. I'm going to be, you're given the responsibility of like senior resident or medical lead. It doesn't necessarily come with money in your practice, or you're the improvement facilitator, or they want you to be a clinical educator, lecturer at the university, or take student doctors, or whatever it is. What is your approach to saying yes to these other requests of our time, which may or may not come with incentives?
Yes. So this is such a good topic because this happens a lot.
A lot.
Yeah. And sometimes you are given either extra pay or less clinic time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that's, I think you get to decide, like, is that a good swap?
Good swap. Yep.
Right. By like, do this and you'll get half a day a week to do it. Half a week where you don't have to see patients and we won't pay you less.
Mm-hmm.
And for that might be great because maybe you do want to see less patients because, it is taxing to see a lot of patients. Mm-hmm. But then there's always things where they don't offer pay. At least, or they don't say it. So I think there's a few things that happen. I think a lot of women just assume it's not paid, so they don't even ask for it. Mm-hmm. Or they want to be a part of a team, or they feel like they should do it, they should pitch in. And if they ask for money, they're worried about people getting mad or being seen as greedy or something. But we're not going to change the narrative that we should get paid for this if women don't ask for it. I had a client who was asked to do something, I forget, maybe something in the realm of like doing some medical education. And there was also a man, and he was getting paid and she was not. And she knew this. But she told me she didn't want to ask for it. So, I can't force her. Of course, I gave my opinion. And I think I was confused. Like, if he's getting, it's like easier. Well, he's already getting paid for what you do. So like, why wouldn't you just say like, well, he's getting paid. Why am I not getting? Well, first of all, that's just crazy that whoever's in charge would think this is okay. But this is the hand that we've given, right? It's actually pretty common that men are offered things and women aren't. Because I think part of it is they know that they could get away with it. But that's a whole nother story. So I think it's important that we have the courage to ask to get paid, or also the courage to say, no, I'm not doing that. Unless, like negotiating, I'm not doing that unless I get less clinic time. Or I'm not doing that unless I get paid more. But this is a common dilemma because they don't want to ask to get paid. They don't want to ask to get something in return because we feel bad. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
But then you're not getting paid for it. Just like if you're charging extra, then you're not getting paid for that.
Yeah. So I like the saying no part, and the saying no can be hard.
Yes.
But I think that the skill set I like to kind of consider if we're being offered. So you get the offer. Hey, we'd like to invite you to be presenting to the student doctors twice a month, right? Offer. And you're like, oh, they think I'm of value. They think I've got something important to say to the student doctors. Delightful. Ego tripping, right? Then create the pause and think about, what is it actually going to cost you? You're like, oh, it's 2 hours a week. I just stand up and give a lecture. I'm like, is it? How long is it going to take you to prep that lecture?
Yes.
Like, honestly, how long will you take to do that work? Or you give a medical leave. So now there's 80 doctors wanting to give you their problems.
Yeah. So part of that problem, and part of it is, like I said, there's like a accepted culture of, well, you teach and that's your contribution and you should just do it for free. And that's like the culture. But again, we can't change it. We talk a lot about systems. And I remember when one of my coach mentors said, but systems are created by people. Mm-hmm. It's not like just some entity out there by computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, the system will change if people will change.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally, like, if you want to be part of the change, and we all want the system to change to be XYZ, that means you have to do something about it. And then when someone sees you doing something about it, then they kind of gain the confidence that, oh, maybe I can do that too. But someone has to go first.
Yeah.
And it's scary if you're the first person. Well, you don't know if you're really the first usually.
Yeah. But also just listening to that effect on your life. So if you're already saying, I don't have time to do this, this, or this, and then they're asking you to do something, then just take into account the cost. And you're like, what would it take to say yes to this? Is it part of what I desire? Like, I do want to be involved in teaching student doctors. Great. How can I do it in a way that's only going to take those 2 hours or 3 hours a week? So I'm not letting it expand into space I don't even have right now, or it will be taking away from something else. And is it a yes right now or a yes later? Like, is it going to fit now, or is it a no right now, but please come back to me? Because in a year or so, it might be in a better place to do that. So I think sometimes we want to say yes because we'll miss out. If we don't say yes now, we'll never get this opportunity again.
Or we just want to be a team player and be seen as, a good worker. And, you get to decide. Maybe you want to do it and you're okay with giving that time. But I think it's important to kind of pause and really like understand the quote unquote cost. And if you're like, you know what, I want to do this, I'm okay with spending that time. And you can change your mind later.
Yeah. So yes, you can absolutely, you can say yes to the unpaid positions, but know that you are giving value. It is going to require time, which is our most precious resource. So where are you going to find that time?
Yeah, I'm sure you do too. Saying no feels bad to me. There's discomfort. And now I just accept that there's some discomfort. It's easier for me because I've been doing it more. I have to say no a lot in my business now. And what I mean by that is, and I'm sure you get requests for your time. I get emails. I want to pick your brain. I want to ask you about this program because I know you've done it. Can we get on the phone? And I pretty much say no to 90% of those requests. Obviously, there's exceptions. And then I don't even know what they think, but I'm sure they're not happy. I mean, why would they be thrilled? And so I've had to learn to say no up front versus, oh yeah, maybe send me the info. That happened recently, actually.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I should have just said no, because then I have to like think about it when I get the email.
The example for the clinical doctors right now of this is the portal question. Here's my 5 questions, dear doctor, for you to answer in the portal. Now, the patient has zero idea that you get $0 for that question, right? And it's not counted towards RVUs. Or they pick up the phone to talk to the patient about the result, and they're not getting RVUs for that. But it's a whole consultation. And it's working on, okay, what are you doing in your day that you're not being recognized or billing for? And how else could you do that? And it's uncomfortable to say no to a patient. No, you need to come in for an appointment.
Yeah.
They think whatever they're going to think. And you feel bad. So you sit there spending 5 minutes typing all of this out. And then they say, oh, here's my next 3 questions. And what we're doing is we're creating a boundary of the patients can ask me as many questions as they want. And I will spend all of my time doing that.
Yeah. And you're training them to do that. You're like, oh, she keeps answering, so I'm going to keep asking questions.
That's right.
And then we get mad.
And then we're mad. We're so mad. So we come home and we spend 3 hours venting or throwing things or whatever, sitting on the couch trying to escape our lives because it's so dreadful because we had to do all of this work unpaid on the computer. It's now costing us in our evenings as well.
Yeah.
Flow-on effect.
Yeah. I know. I think practicing that muscle of saying no. I do have like I don't want to say script, but something that makes me feel good when I do say no is, you've heard of the sandwich? Positive, no, positive.
Yes.
So
I love that you asked this question. I'd love to see you in clinic instead. See you next time.
Yeah. So that would be the clinician thing. And then for me, it's thank you so much for considering me, because I get asked to speak a lot and I have to say no to most of them. Because also it's like, I don't want to fly. it's like, I think in the beginning it was worth doing, but now it's more taxing on me and my family. So thank you for asking, considering me. I'm so honored. I cannot do this, but here's someone else that I try to give them, I try to help them. So that's what I do now. And I feel really good about that. And I do have people that I can recommend, and I feel really good about those recommendations.
Yeah. Same within our clinical world. Like, I get asked to do or pick up a new role, and I'm like, that sounds great, but I cannot make that work with my timeline right now. But I have someone in mind who might be interested in that.
Yeah.
Helpful. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys to either create some time or to be more comfortable about spending some money in the right places or making some more money.
Yeah. And I think if whoever's listening, if you can remember anything, it's just consider that freeing up your time and your brain space, because freeing up time is also freeing up your brain space, that is going to allow you to actually create more money if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't know why you wouldn't want that.
Or even have the brain space to go learn something about money and make money less confusing for yourself, or make it less threatening to you, or have some interest in it, or the ability to go and read in another field that you're interested in, or do those things that you've been wanting to go and do that could make your life so much more fun or interesting or whatever.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Freeing up time to have some kind of return, whether it's money, life satisfaction, all that good stuff.
Memory making. Yeah. So good. Thank you, Bonnie. Where can people find you?
So it's pretty easy. Everything is Wealthy Mom MD. That's my website. That's the name of my podcast, and Instagram.
Perfect. And you have a book. What is your book called?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I forget I have a book. The book is not called Wealthy Mom MD, but it's called Defining Wealth for Women. And you can find that, the usual places. And there's also an audiobook version that I'm the narrator.
Defining Wealth for Women. Love it. So go get your hands on that, or go check out Bonnie and see what you can achieve about money and finances for yourself. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Thank you for being part of the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. If you'd like to learn more or join us to help you get home with today's work done, go to chartingcoach.ca. There you'll find all the information on the premier Lifetime Access Charting Champions program that is helping physicians get home with today's work done, with all the proven tools, support, and community you need to create time for your life outside of medicine. We would love to see you there. Until next time, thanks for listening.